Okay, so here is an ha. Here's the thing I'm going to try to do today. I'm going to try to do a bit of a long video and talk over it of me trying to solve a problem that I made a very long time ago before I have a convention to go to. So, a little bit of spoilers here, I guess. Sorry. Cat hair on my microphone, so you might hear something weird. Sorry. I'm going to try to edit a scene. There's a bit of character interaction that I want to add to my book that wasn't in it previously. It's kind of the thing about writing and drawing and everything taking a long time is it's kind of always on your mind and you're always sort of thinking about what you can do to change things, or maybe you don't like how something came out and you think, okay, so maybe I could rewrite a scene, and the downside is maybe you've already drawn the scene. But and normally I would not even do this kind of thing, but since I've yet to print this book, um, I'm gonna do this because going forward in the later issues, I want to add interaction between this character that was set up and and the main character Caleb. So this is going to be a bit of a different kind of uh, work, the kind of just sort of an editing, splicing together of scenes. This is a problem I find myself running into quite a bit actually in making comics is this sort of I want to add a scene, but I need to reconfigure pages and things like that. So, all right, here I go. Um, I'll try to I'll try to talk my way through it, but maybe I won't be able to either way. I don't know. And if I don't, I'll just upload this as like a time lapse that I talk over in a different way. So first thing I need to do is I want to show this scene right here. I'm not a fan of this panel. I would like to redraw it, but what I want to do is I want to add the interaction of this character. You can't see him very well, but this guy right here, this guy, his name is Felshire. He is a parent that gave up his own daughter for the sake of their religion the night before. So like the big catalyst of this story is that there was sort of a lynching party in the village that happened the night before. So the family wakes up and goes to church, and on their way to church they see the hanging bodies and things like that. So they see the aftermath of the night before, a body burning at a stake, things like that. Yeah, fun stuff, right? They miss the party. So anyway, I want to add interactions between this character and my main character, Caleb, because, you know, in this story, most of the characters are going to be like foils to the main character in some way. So this character is going to represent, what Caleb could have been had he been just blindly devoted to his religion. Um, so here we go. Let's see. All right, so this is all a number of panels. So the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to take this layer here, and I'm going to just merge it into a single layer. And if you don't know how to do that, you can go under layer. I think it's under layer. And somewhere in here, you can merge visible to new layer. I have a hotkey or a shortcut set up to do just that, and it's Control Shift Alt E is the way I do it. It's not something I use very often, so a giant like a four key hotkey isn't bad for something like that. Um, and it's not far away from what is already the merge layers. So like Merge with layer below, Control E. Merge selected layer, Control Shift E. Merge visible layers, Control Alt E. Things like that. So, you know, merge all visible to a new layer. I just made that Control Alt Shift E. And so here we go. Control Alt Shift. Whoops, sorry about that. Control Alt Shift E. And now you have, if you hide everything, now you have one rasterized layer of everything. And that's just going to make it easier to do like cut and paste work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this here, and I'm going to paste it into this page right here. I mean, honestly, this might be pretty boring for you guys. We'll see. And then since I've already done that, I'm going to just delete this layer. I don't need it. And then I'll just wake everything back up. And save it. And leave that page alone. Because I'm pretty much done with it. What is... Oh, okay, that's garbage I don't need, so let's put that in a... Oh, caps is on. A junk folder. And I always turn my junk folders yellow for my own weird organizational stuff. And I'll just save it and close. Alright. So I created this file I called patch pages, and I do everything in story files so I can kind of always jump in and out of it. This is another set of pages that I redrew for this issue. Just you know, we just redrawing scenes. So the first time I drew it, it was very first drafty. You know, things I wanted to change and things like that. So what I want to do is make this. So I'm just gonna make the whole scene just so I can see the flow of it better. So this whole scene is about, I think about 3 pages, and I want it to play out a little differently. So this is all unchanged. This is mostly unchanged, but I do want to redraw this this panel eventually. So I'm still gonna do the thing. So Control Alt Shift D, make a new layer, grab all that. And these are these pages that I'm working on for this this patch file right here. I'm not going to make these rasterized paste ups like the final image. If I would integrate this into the layers and everything the way it needs to be, but just for the sake of like plotting it out, I'm just doing it as just like quick cut and paste kind of stuff. And get rid of that new layer because I don't need it anymore, and then I'll just save it and close it out so I don't get confused on what I'm looking at first. And also I'm going to change the coloring of this so I know what I'm working on. I'm always jumping back and forth between two different monitors. I have a monitor that I work, like I draw on, which is my XP pen, like 16 inch or whatever, and that's what I do all my drawing on. But I find that doing like layout work and cut and paste work, I find that is a whole lot easier to do with a drawing tablet. And I've had the same drawing tablet for, Jesus Christ, what is it, 2026? at least 16 years at this point. We got these in 2010 when we were working on an animated movie. Oh my God. Anyway, so yeah. So what I'm gonna do. So this is all gonna be more or less unchanged. I think I might change some of the dialogue up, but I don't need to worry about that just yet. So what I am gonna do though is I'm going to, just for visual expediency, I guess, I'm just gonna make this stuff kind of obviously not finished. And this panel is not going to change as far as the composition probably, but I don't like the sword designs. I just don't like his face. Like, I'm going to end up redrawing this whole panel. So I'm just gonna do like a quick kind of stabilization down. My goodness. That is one downside to jumping back and forth between tablet and drawing monitor is thing like the pressure sensitivity and stuff like that changes back and forth, so I have to kind of constantly change my size and things like that. So I'm just going to do this just to indicate, so I can do like at a quick glance know that this isn't done and I can keep going with it. But like I said, most of this stuff is going to remain unchanged. And I don't want it to change too much because these pages were drawn 3 years ago, maybe 4 years, and there's a lot of stylistic changes and I don't know how would you say it. I've just gotten to be a better artist in those years. I do a lot of grinding, so I'm always getting better, and you can see it in the pages and the work. I think the work I'm doing on issue 4 of this thing is leagues ahead of the stuff I did on issue 1. And so yeah, I'm gonna run into some issues like that, but I don't want it to be too obvious. Anyway, so I'm just gonna hit save on that guy right there, and then I'm gonna open this right here and put this right there. And I do want to change these two panels. These two panels are definitely going to change because what we're going to do is we're going to add our new character in. And maybe I can get away with not using these panels, but maybe I can't. So let's do this. Let's go. Let's make it a mask so it's not. So it's, what's the word I'm looking for? So I can actually get it back if I need it. Sorry. Mask selected? Yeah, no. Okay, so I definitely want to make sure I have a paper panel. So G white. If anyone knows how to make a paper panel, a paper layer, let me know. I haven't done that before. I haven't looked at it. I'm sure it's not that hard, but because you know, if you open up a new, let's see, just do a new quick 115 paper color, whatever. You open up a new thing, the paper layer has this sort of indicator that it is a paper layer, not a regular layer. So, if anyone knows how to make that layer, you know, sound off in the comments. Because I don't know how to do that. And I haven't looked it up. It's probably super easy. It's probably something I could figure out by looking it up. I just don't have time. So, anyway, I'm just gonna close this. So yeah, there's another, right there is a paper layer, but here, this doesn't have a paper layer because it wasn't made like that. So, anyway. Um, so yeah, it's just a regular raster layer on the bottom of everything I called paper. And I don't know why this says paper. Maybe it's because maybe I named it that on accident. I'll just write this old art. Alright. D. And what was I going to do? I was going to mask selection. Alright, cool. That's what I wanted to do right there. Excuse me. I will be right back. Forgive me. So sorry, I left something downstairs. Very professional of me to do that while recording. Anyway, I'm back. Alright, so let's open up the very quickly bang together script that I made yesterday. Cedar boys. And surrounding him, cedar jesters, Caleb pointed out the killer valves. Okay. Alright, so Caleb Felshire. Alright. I'm just gonna move this off screen so you don't have to just look at a bunch of text. Alright. And I'm gonna do this fast. I'm not gonna really push too hard anyway. So, first panel is... Let's go ahead and lock that so it's not in the way. I lost my stuff for a second. Okay. Smudgy. Stabilization. I think this is being messed with. Oh, I should do that. Correction. Stabilization. Adjust my speed is not on. That's what I could have swore that was going on. Anyway. Density. Oh, yeah. It's a little better. Bed pressure. I don't really use the opacity pressure very often. I don't know why this pencil has it, but it'll be a quick, easy kind of thing. Alright, sorry. It's the fun of doing layouts. Even more fun of watching me make layouts. Cedar gestures to Caleb, pointing Tam's known killer valves. That's this one right here. To Caleb to Felshire. Surprised to see you this lot and not with your family. So what you might notice is my CSP, Clip Studio, looks very different than other people's. Clip is incredibly sort of Clip is very versatile and customizable, and I have been customizing mine for over a decade, adding new hotkeys, making new menus and everything. So in my mind, I would imagine, and I've tried to use, like when my wife was drawing too, she'd be using Clip Studio, and she had one that was um, a lot more of the how would you say, like out of the box kind of. She doesn't really mess too much with stuff like that. She was using like default brushes and things like that. So I would get over and try to, like, she'd be like, how do you do this thing or whatever, and I'd get over and I could barely use hers, and she couldn't even begin to use mine because mine is just so customized and different. So I'm gonna make this guy Belshire. Or maybe I should make this guy. That way he's the closest. But I want him to look like this guy, so these two will probably end up getting swapped. Because I want Felshire to be sort of an older guy. So let's see. We'll do something like, and this won't be like the final staging. But, you know, it'll just get some quick storytelling taken care of. When I finish the pages, I'll get in there with a little more dynamism to see if, and I need to get a little closer to this guy because I need to establish his look and his name and everything with his face, because in that first church scene, he's never really you never really get too close on him because it's not ideal, but I didn't plan on this guy being a major character. He was just sort of a thing. He was just sort of almost like a prop, I guess, instead of a character. So, but now since he's a character, I need to be a little more, show him a little more prominently, you know, give him a hero shot, as it were. And like I said, this is not the final staging. Let's see. Let's go something I never called myself that. Felshire, surprised to see you in this lot and not with your family. So I'll just do Felshire, surprised to see you. Then I'm going to push this down a little bit so I can make some room. This is the kind of stuff you gotta do when you're making comic layouts. Even crappy ones like this. But when I say crappy, I mean like even kind of quick and dirty, not really thought out, not really creative layouts. So the next shot is Cedar. Sort of patting him on the back or, you know, something. Why did that? I don't need that. Let's see. Maybe I can reuse that layout right there for this shot. because it's sort of the same sentiment. Cedar being super casual about this incredibly vile act, and he's sort of playfully hitting the character. So, let's see. Maybe I can do something like this. Let's go ahead and hide this again. Let's do Caleb. Cedar. Say something like, and yeah, sorry if this doesn't look very good. It's not very enticing. It's just it's supposed to be symbols or yeah, like just a representation of what I will draw. Just quick staging. And when I do layouts, I don't worry too much about the actual blocking of the shot as much as I do the acting of the character and just the beat by beat of the story. Because I'm not very good at doing that in the script stage. Like, I almost always have to write things in this sort of prose-esque kind of way and then break that down into panels. And when I do it with text, it almost never works out the way I've imagined it will work out. So then when I get to drawing, I'm always like, oh, I don't need all three panels to, oh, I can do this thing in one panel, or even worse, I end up in a situation where I think I can do something in one panel and it ends up taking way more. So like, and my wife and I kind of laugh about this sometimes. It's not, it's not exactly a good thing, but when I first thought about doing this story, um, when I was just kind of conceptualizing the plot and everything, I stupidly thought I could do it all in about 3 issues. Because I just wrote it out as this sort of 3-act story, and something inside me thought I could get away with doing this in like 3 issues of like 30 pages each or something like that. Just like I wanted so bad to do a story that was small and doable because I always pick these sort of epic, grand kind of things, and I thought, okay, if I can just do this as almost like a 90-minute movie kind of thing, and it's still written like that, but as far as what what it actually takes to get done, it's crazy to think that I thought I could get this done in anything less than like 6 issues or whatever. And the way it's shaping out, there's no way it's gonna definitely be more than 6. Anyway, I just the point is I thought this story was a lot smaller than it actually ended up being. And now that I'm working on it, I'm like, oh wow. I mean, hell, issue 1, the first act ended up being way bigger than I than it probably ideally should be, but it's not easy to do all that kind of setup in just a few pages. And you know what? If I wanted to throw all that work out, I could probably go back to the drawing board and rewrite everything a lot more poppy and a lot more like energetic. And I probably could jigger? I don't know if that's the right word, reconfigure this to be a lot more spice. I could probably, I could probably pick up the pace quite a bit. But that's not the way it came out. And as much as I don't mind adding a few pages here and there to make things flow more, I am not willing to just throw it all out and draw issue 1 all over again from the beginning. If I was smart, I would have done layouts for the entire story from start to finish, not just issue at a time. Saw it as one cohesive whole and then did all my editing, because that's what, people who do this stuff for a living, professionals, people who know what they should be doing. But that's not what I did. So I am doing what I always do and just sort of flying by the seat of my pants. Let's see. Look at the script real quick. Hold on a second. See, I'm just going to point Caleb, known as the Killer of Hobbs. That's not Caleb to Felshire. Surprised to see you with this lot and not with your family. See, our true son proved as much last night. Pretty much begged us to join at the church. Guess now he's got a taste for freeing heathens. Oren in the background freeing? Okay. Maybe. Maybe I don't need. See, this is what I'm talking about. I think I need certain panels, but the truth is, I can do it in one panel. So let's see. Let's do something like this. Like a big wide. And that'll feel a little more natural considering you got Caleb, Cedar, and then I'm going to move this guy over. So let's see. Big wide. And I'll say something like this. It's hard to do these kind of panels in webtoon, which I ran into that issue. I just like working in page format more than I like webtoon format. It just feels better. So I'm gonna add this, and everything's gonna be framed up by other people. So let's see. Compositionally. Alright, this guy, I'm gonna change his entire kind of demeanor. He's getting hit by Cedar still, but he's gonna be a little more what's the word? Posturing about it? I don't know how to explain it. It's sort of like proud of himself that he's getting, ragged on a little by the guys. This is sort of a toxic masculinity scene in a way. Because the whole point is Cedar giving Caleb shit for being what he perceives as weak now because he's no longer got a stomach for violence. So, something like that. And again, this is not probably going to be the final staging, but just the storytelling, the sequential beats of the story. So, we'll call this guy, this is Felshire. Whoops, Felshire, this is Cedar, and this is Caleb. And I can probably pull Caleb away a little bit. And just to Just to frame up the shot a little bit, I will put these things here, and that's just an indicator that these guys are still standing around. And this is the way I do my layouts. They're always a sort of sloppy, fast things that only I could really, probably only I could really understand. If you're wondering how I'm doing this with my brush, if you hold Control Alt while you're using a brush, you can change the size on the fly. I also have this here, over here, because when I'm working on the drawing monitor, I don't really get to use my hotkeys anywhere near as much. So when I'm working on my tablet, hotkeys are like constantly being used, and you can probably hear the keys. I move very fast with the hotkeys, and it's very much like a muscle memory. I know exactly what key does what, and they are so ingrained in me at this point that I probably couldn't even tell you what the keys are. I just know them by muscle memory. And when I don't have them, I feel truly lost. So I think this works. Alright, Caleb Felshire first. Cedar Jesters to Caleb. Okay, that is that. Felshire, surprised to see you this long, not your family. Just. And then Cedar will say, True Sun proved as much last night. Maybe I'll just go ahead and letter it out just so I can keep up with this. I'll see. Felshire. Surprised to see you. This not and not your family. Maybe I can do like a kind of thing to show Cedar interrupts him. A true son. A true son. Proved as much last night. Pretty much begged us to join. Pretty much begged to join us after church service. Do a break here. Pretty much begged to join us after church service. Guess now he's got a taste. Well, maybe that should have been the break. Guess now he's got a taste for freeing heathens. Alright, so I can. This will be the interruption. Something like this. to do the full. For myself, I don't need to do the, what do you call it, the tails and the bubbles and whatnot. That'll work for me because I'm just drawing in red color and doing quick letters and stuff. So let's see here. So that right there, like I said, that was supposed to be 2 panels, and I just knocked it into one. So you're just sort of choose one. And then now we're gonna have Oren saying freeing. So let's see. I'll just write freeing, just get that over with. Freeing. Maybe I can do Sarah cuts. I'm sure I shouldn't say I'm sorry for this. Okay, so I could probably do all that. Okay, so might be able to get away. Tough bastard. Answer the calls right back in the middle of them when he comes. Sorry, you're hearing a lot of like foul language from me under my breath. It's because this guy is a villain and he's an asshole and he's a racist and he says horrible things. Alright, so let's see. Let's do the one thing about doing layouts for webtoon as opposed to on page is when you're just doing vertical strips, you can just kind of draw and just like you need a beat, you just add a beat, you know. But on a page, you need to be a lot more careful. So that's one way in which it's easier to uh, work in webtoon just because you don't need to think about the layout aspect of it. And sometimes it's easier to do that for me just so I can, I guess, break the bad version out first. So if I can get the shit out, then I can start working on the good stuff. So what I need here is I need an image of Oren, the little boy, being thrown by the word freeing in reference to killing somebody. And I don't know what the right pose would be. So I'm just gonna do something. Let's see, maybe I could do something. Let's do like a quick sort of staging. Let's do something like, okay, so we have Sarah standing here, Oren standing there. So Oren's about 11, so he comes to about the top of her chest. He's gonna be like freeing, and this is where like some of the staging is gonna get weird, right? Because off panel, what you're gonna need to believe is this dude got close. So maybe Caleb can be kind of standing there in the background. So let's see, let's try something like, let's try something like this. Let's do like a sort of a top-down deal, maybe. I guess Sarah kind of standing right there. And we'll put Orin a little more up against his mom. Shoulders. Caleb. Cedar. Oh. Huh, that's not it. Huh. I lost one of my... Lost one of my tools. I wonder where it went. I had a silhouette pen that I used for doing like a quick tone thing while I was while I'm doing this kind of work, and I can't seem to find it because the hotkey used to be 5 and I don't see it, so I'm just going to move on so I'm not wasting time. Alright, we'll do something like this. 5 is fine. And that's just let me see. Sorry. This is gonna be a little weird. So shortcut settings, tools. I can find pencil 2B, 3. See if I can find the 5. Still drawing. That's it right there. Wonder why. Interesting. Alright, so sometimes these hotkeys just kind of go away. I don't know why, but sometimes they do, especially when you've made a bunch of them. So sometimes you just kind of lose your subtool or you lose your hotkey. But now I have the thing, so still drawing. It's literally just a quick kind of low opacity kind of pen that I use just to do a quick kind of bit of silhouette. So that's what I call silhouette drawing. It's just a quick way to just add some value to the image, just to break up an image. And I basically only ever use it for during layouts. So delete. Let's see. Let's try and look horrified. She grabs Oren's hands. Your wife, both true children indeed. Da da da. Sure. Just want to see her Oren. That's right, lad. Do it with mercy. We do it with love. So maybe something like this. And then maybe I can just do like a quick kind of, so that would be Caleb. Obviously, it's not a very accurate drawing, but whatever. Caleb standing uncomfortable. Caleb is highly uncomfortable during this entire scene because he knows he's being ribbed by all these like guys, especially Cedar, who is basically the toughest guy in the village. And he hates that Caleb is sort of given credit for being a tough guy, a great warrior, because of shit he did years ago in the war, but has completely lost his taste for that kind of violence now, and he sees Caleb as a man who has lost his edge. He's gone soft, essentially. So, anyway, freeing, and then go, that's right, lad. That's cedar. And then maybe I can do something a little more intimate. Intimate's not the right word. Just to show cedar is dangerous and kind of scary. And he's getting... How would you do this pose? Let's see. Bends down, kind of look at him. He's towering over, but he wants to get close to make the kid a little uncomfortable. Anyway, I'm not going to get too bogged down in how that works, because I'm going to figure that out during the actual finishing phase. This is just beat by beat, as I've said multiple times. Alright, so get rid of that. Let's see. That's right, lad. Also, because I do all my own stuff here, I basically letter the book as I draw it, so that's also helpful. But what also ends up happening is I get super into the drawing phase, and I always end up having to come back and letter, but usually I will do like a letter during the layout phase as well. So that's right. I know one of these guys has somewhat of like a Scottish kind of vibe to him. It's this weird sort of amalgamation of like Puritan, like early North American Puritan and Viking. It's very what do you call it? It's very inspired by the Witcher, that world of medieval fantasy, kind of generic peasants. I know The Witcher is Polish, so maybe that's what medieval world looked like in Poland. It's not full of like serfdoms and things like that. Feudalism? Yeah, I don't know. I didn't, it's not important to the story, so I'm not spending too much time on it. But that's like the setting. It's just this sort of generic Middle Ages slash Puritan culture. Um, where did I go? Oddly enough, smiling. Freeing, that's right, lad. We do it with mercy and we do it with love. That's what old Father wants. We do it with mercy and we do it with love. That is the will. I'll just change it a bit. Old. Cut off. So here's what I'm gonna do. Shrink this down. Nope. Shrink this down. So then do something like this. Something still slow. You see me doing anything and you want to know how it's done, feel free to put that in the comments. I think that would probably be smarter if I did this as a live stream and then somebody could actually stop me and ask me. But, you know, I'm not a good internet person. I'm building up to my stuff. Maybe something like that. It's okay if I cover half the kid's head, or maybe I can do like that, and these can be umbilically. Fun fact, Will Eisner, the great god of modern, the grandfather of sequential storytelling, absolutely hated what he called umbilical word balloons. In fact, him and Frank Miller constantly, there was like a bone of contention throughout their careers what to do with word balloons because they didn't like the standard kind of, you know, they think this symbol kind of breaks the illusion of what comic book storytelling is. So you'll see in Will Eisner's books, he'll try all kinds of things. So if I like, you know, just a guy or whatever raging at the sky, and instead of like a word balloon, it'll be like, you know, just the words. And that's because he never got to a point where he felt comfortable with the word balloon. He thinks that this is, he feels like it clashes too much with the story, with the artwork. And I happen to disagree with him completely. I think the word balloons necessarily need to break the illusion of the art. I think, sorry, I just might. I think that is sort of a necessary kind of break. I think the because comics aren't, I'm getting weird and philosophical and I'm breaking what I'm actually doing, but I think because comics aren't, they're not movies, they're not prose, they're this sort of amalgamation of the both, of they're sort of a middle ground for both books and movies and films or whatever. Um, and they're also not storybooks, you know, they're not like kids' books with just like a picture and then words at the bottom or whatever. They are this weird middle ground. And because they are in that weird middle ground, I feel like you need something to almost like a narrator speaking over the action, sort of break the art, sort of, uh, I don't know how to explain it. Like, I think the art exists on one level, and the words exist on another level. And you need these levels to be separate. Sort of like how animation actually works better when you have line art characters, cell shaded characters on top of these sort of painterly backgrounds, as opposed to, if, and I know it's not like it's never been done, but when you have line art characters on top of a line art background, it feels a little different. You can lose the character in the screen. You need to be able to, more than anything, you need to be able to follow the character throughout the screen. And if you lose that, then it doesn't matter how good the animation is. It doesn't matter because, and I see this a lot with like, I follow, I'm part of like these sort of amateur animation groups on Facebook. Because in case you didn't know, I have 2 degrees in animation. I went to college for animation, so as much as I am a comic book artist, I am also an animator, and I haven't done it in a long time, and I'm so time consuming. I don't do it very often, and almost all of my animation work has been the sort of economical kind of animation work where I wasn't able to just go all out and do the best I could. So like, if you look at my work, you won't realize that you wouldn't think I'm, some sort of person who could tell people what they're doing wrong. But my point is, I know what you're supposed. I know animation. I know how to animate. Um, so what you'll always see is you see these people who do these like Sakuga style, crazy poses, crazy camera angles and everything, but they don't know how to hold frames. And one of the things you need to know how to do in animation is you need to know how to hold frames. You need to know to, you know, uh, when to sit on a frame and when not to. So like even people who are really good at drawing and really good at moving a character in like these crazy angles, which I don't really draw in, but like let's say, you know what I'm saying, this sort of high high perspective, uber perspective angles and characters flying all over the screen and stuff like that. Um, you got to know when to hold your frames and when not to. And a lot of amateur animation animators don't. So what happens is you watch their animation and you're like, wow, that's really great work. And everyone in the comments is completely blown away. But that's because they're watching it like over and it's like a 5 second clip and they're watching it over and over and over and over and over and over and over. But you need to think about this from the perspective of a viewer. If you're only going to watch that clip, that 5 second shot one time and then on to the next shot, you have no idea what happened in that shot because it moved too fast and it wasn't readable and things like that. So, what was my point even? You need readability is what's most important in animation. And likewise, I think readability is what's most important in comics. And everyone will say different things. There's comics. There's like highly um, stylized, painterly comics where the it's almost like they're playing with the art form. And I tend to not like abstract comics as much, like things like the Arkham Asylum comic, or if you ever saw the original Coheed and Cambria Fear Through the Eyes of Madness comic, it was like super painted, highly abstract visuals, very hard to keep up with. Very beautiful, but insanely hard to read, because it's not sequential in the sense that, not to be like, oh, I'm a perfect example of that. You have, here's a scene with a bunch of people talking, this guy's pointing at this guy. And he says, he's killer of elves, boys. And he's like, haha, I never called myself that. And it's just a very clear sequence of events. One, two, three, bam, 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 bam. Inside borders to let when to look at things and when not, what comes next, things like that. Uh, that to me is like that's the best kind of comics. I don't really care for experimental comics or you know um, abstract art in comics and stuff. You know, there's a place for it, and if that's what you want to make, hey, more power to you, but that's not the kind of stuff that I'm going to be reading, and it's not the kind of stuff I want to make. So, anyway, yeah, that was a big digression. What is my next panel? Next panel. Sarah interrupts Cedar to tell Fellshire that she is sorry for his loss. So, this will work good because Sarah's already got her hands on Oren's shoulders, and Oren's already standing next to his mom, so she can easily kind of stand between them. Let's see, Fellshire is on. Fellshire's on the right. And then this dude, whoever this guy is, just gonna be a. So, and Fellshire is always directly to the right of Cedar. I need to, in order to keep the 180 line, I need to make sure that Fellshire doesn't break that. It's okay that Sarah breaks because she's going to interrupt. She's pushing Oren back, so I don't need to worry about the nest. I don't necessarily need to worry about the who comes the sequence of these guys 1, 2, 3, because these guys are kind of one entity. The family is one entity in the 180 line, and Cedar and his people are another entity in the 180 line, but I also need to make sure that Fellshire is always to the right of Cedar in order not to break that solution. So maybe I can do something like move him. I guess I don't need to, technically I don't need to add Fellshire to this scene, but I'll just put this here just as sort of a indicator that he is there. I'll just put an F there, and whenever I finalize this shot, I'll be able to figure this out. Might even bust out some 3D models to figure it out more. So like the issue I'm running into here is if you're looking at this from a 180-degree rule, and the simplest term is if you have characters, let's say you have a scene, one character A is standing here, and character B is standing here, and the camera is like here, and it's pointing at A, or it's. So the idea there is if this is the line that you've created this line between these guys, and if you'll see it in movies and stuff, and every time you see, no matter what the shot is, as far as the camera goes, it never comes on this side of the line. And what that does in camera is that means that if you've established that A is always to the left of B, or this is the line, then inside, and depending on how you place your camera, when you look through the view of the lens, what that means is no matter what shot you pick, as long as you stay on the side of the line, A will always be on the left of B. And that could be a side shot where these two people are just looking at each other, As long as the camera never gets on this side of the line, it'll be just like a side shot where these guys are looking at each other. Or it could be like an over-the-shoulder shot. Or it could be a super high angle shot. Or any shot, as long as you don't break the line. As long as you stay on this side of the line, what's going to end up being is A is always going to be on the left of B. And that's sort of the shorthand for it, so you don't have to think too hard about it. As long as Caleb is always to the left of Cedar and the rest of the guys, not all the guys, but and the important guys, then it doesn't really matter where I put the camera. I won't break that 180 rule. And the way I'm seeing it in this scene is I'm seeing the entire family of Caleb, Sarah, and Oren as a single entity on the side of the line. And that means, so Cedar and then Fellshire are the other people that are always on this side of the line. And the other guys, there's like 5 guys. The other guys, it really doesn't matter because they're just like a framing element. So I can break that illusion all I want. But as long as this family and this couple, as long as the family and the couple are always to the left of each other, and left and right of each other, then it doesn't matter. So what I'm running into is I need her to step in front of him and talk to him. Which is not going to be hard as far as the 180 rule. It's just going to be a little weird because this guy's between these two. And I'm not sure how to go about that. So I did that sort of thing in another panel in the next issue. And I'm also not too happy with how that played out either because Sarah sort of pops in out of nowhere. And that's sort of fine because comics, you know, a lot happens in the gutters. But I don't like to, I don't know what that was about. But I don't like to put too much in the gutters. Sorry, I'm sure this isn't exactly riveting to watch. But that's making comics, man. Sometimes this stuff is just, it's a lot of just mental brain work. You trying to figure out logistically where characters go. Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry. I burped into the mic. And it's a lot harder to do in a talking head scene because talking heads are less fun. Let's see. I might be just kind of breaking my brain for no reason. I already have an upshot, so this upshot sort of sort of I'm looking for. Establishes, you know. I have this shot kind of showing that Cedar leaned in close to Oren. So what I could do is, let's do something like this. Let's say Sarah pushing Oren back. Obviously this is super rough and sloppy just to get the story beat. And once I have that, then I can, if I feel like it works, then I can fix it. So let's say Sarah get on the other side of Oren. Let's put her hand on her chest because she's expressing condolences for the loss to Felshire. And so I will put Felshire here. Yeah, something like that. And Felshire is going to be super dark about it. Maybe I can get away with making cedar just like the sort of dark shape between them. And I don't really care about the distance. What's more important to me is the staging. Or is the, yeah. Let's make cedar. He can just be a black shape between them. Maybe I can get away with something like this. Zoom out. Just cut cedar. It can just be this sort of looming dark shape between these two characters. Let's see. Let's take Orin. So he's about this tall. Maybe I can have her put her hand on his chest, and he can just kind of grab onto his mom. I want to be careful with that kind of stuff, because Orin is supposed to be about 11 years old. 10, 11 years old. Old enough to talk, old enough to argue, and I also don't want him to be like this super weak, kind of scared mama's boy type character either. But who's always being like cuddled by his mom. So I gotta be careful about that kind of stuff. And since cedar here is kind of this looming shape over the whole thing, I can get away with him being between them. If that's how he's going to be colored, you know, that's how he's going to be blocked out. And he's not even going to be seen very much. Well, like, he'll be just like this looming shape between them, which means I can put whatever word balloons I need to over him, because he's just a compositional element. And this is likely to change. But this is a layout that I can work off of. So, now let's do the lettering for this moment. Sarah cuts him off to Felshire. Felshire, I just want to say I'm sorry. Felshire. I just want to say I am sorry. Now here is where it's going to get a little creepy. And maybe I can zoom in a bit to show the creepiness on Sarah's face, because Sarah is supposed to be creeped out by this moment because Felshire doesn't give a fuck that his daughter just died. And not only that his daughter died, but he's the one who offered her up to the lynch mob because he thought she was a witch. I thank you, Sarah, but she stopped being a daughter. I think you, Sarah, that she stopped being a daughter when she denied our Lord. Doesn't this sound like a really fun book? Sorry, I know it's my own damn story, but it's not like I'm doing Murder Falcon here. Not a call upon the street. No loss at all, but a spiritual gain. I'm sure I just want to say I'm sorry for your loss. Dear Lord, no loss at all, but a spiritual gain. I'm blessed to know that when called upon, I had the strength to answer. It's to know the strength to answer. As to my wife. Now, there's supposed to be another panel that there's supposed to be another panel that is sort of a close-up on Sarah, sort of horrified by his casual nature. And I wanted it to be on this page. But as it's laid out now, there's not any room. But that doesn't mean I can't maneuver some things to make room. So, but I don't want it to be too awfully crowded either. So what I might end up doing is, do I need, and this is something you end up having to do sometimes, to make comics. Sometimes something as simple as a freaking centimeter can be the difference. So, the way I'm gonna do this, so I don't have to think about this image anymore, is I'm going to make a quick kind of thing of this panel. Just so I have something to work off of. Man, drawing this image, I feel like I drew this specific pose a bazillion times because it feels so familiar now that I'm doing it. Maybe I did, I don't remember. Anyway, let's see. Go just that smile there, just as a slight indicator. Ponytail. Here's big dude. Okay, let's do something like that. And now I'm just going to get rid of that completely. And this, let me go like that. And in case you're wondering, I am always talking to myself while I do this stuff. It's not just because there's a microphone and I'm recording, but it's literally, if I'm not doing it out loud, it's certainly how I do it in my head. There's definitely a mental thing, a mental process going on while I'm doing this kind of stuff. So I'd be talking to myself anyway. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm going to shrink this because it doesn't need to be big. It just needs to be clear. And that'll actually give me room to add Felshire and make it more readable. And I could even spread out the layout a bit, or spread out the ground plan, I guess. I'll just do this a bit. And the reason I did that, and I'm going to, I don't do this very often. That's weird. 40, nope. 45 snap. That means, okay. I never do this, but I'm gonna do it now. I'm gonna do like a little dotted line panel, just because what I want is I ultimately want this to be a borderless panel. And I don't want to forget that. So then I'm going to move this panel. And, you know, some people would do all this in different layers. That way they can, you know, grab things and maneuver them more succinctly. But I don't do that because it slows me down a lot. I don't like having a ton of panels. I never have been that guy. I don't like having a ton of panels, and I think I don't need to do it. So, now that I've done that, that's going to be down like that, which means I can go like freeing. That's right, lad. And then I can move this down here. So we do it with mercy, we do it with love, blah, 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 blah. Maybe I could still kind of overlap that. And now I can move all this up. And maybe even make it bigger and more prominent, like a more dynamic thing. Where he's like that. And I don't know if I might cut it off, I might not. Which means what I'll probably end up doing is I'll probably end up putting this back to normal and actually keeping this panel, making this a bordered panel, so I can make this an open panel. And then I'll add some dynamism to the page. Now I'm going to break my rule here, so I don't. So I can do something. So Control X, Control V, now it's on its own layer. I'm going to make this nice and big. Maybe something like that. Let's going to need to be a little bit smaller though, because it needs to be able to fit in the title safe. Or the crop borders, or whatever you call that in comics. So now I'm going to move this over. I thank you, Sarah. No loss at all. As did my wife. Now, the reason I did that, so I can do this. I'm gonna do just a little face, nothing serious, just a little something to indicate Sarah here. I need to make her freaked out by what she's hearing. So, maybe some like squint purse, or what do you call it? Furrowed brows, confused brows, but wide eyes. Wouldn't be subtle acting, but in comics and animation, more is more. And she needs to sort of sell to these scary psycho Christians that she's on board with their insanity. Because they could easily turn on her and accuse her of being a witch, which, you know, isn't a million miles away from what's going to happen. Let's see. This is a good expression, but probably not the right angle for it. But anyway, that's good enough for that, as did my wife. Sarah, trying not to look horrified, she grabs Orin's hands tight. Your wife, both true children, indeed. This is my wife. And then I'll just do something like this. Let's say as to my wife, your wife. So I'm like, that's right, both of you. She's trying to sort of hide her disgust and also pay him a compliment at the same time. True children indeed. True children is the term for very devoted followers of their religion, since they call their god Old Father. If you show that you are a devoted member of the flock, then you are called a true son or a true daughter. So, she says to them, they are here. Surely you have proven that you are a true child of Old Father. And hopefully that comes across. Let's see. I'm going to think I'm gonna call this page laid out. Let's see. Since I'm already doing the letters, I'll just Cedar, sorry, lost right then. Mass contempt. I thought as much. Pointing out the men Caleb is known as Killer Bells. Caleb is okay. Alright, let's see. Let's go. What does it say? Killer Bells, boys. Okay. Never called myself that. What does he say? I never called myself that. Yeah, that's all. Just example. Just all right. Killer Bells was. I never called myself that. And might seem abrupt for Caleb to then just go straight to Felshire, but I think he's just trying to change the subjects. It might not clash too much. True son proved as much last night. So everyone is super proud of this guy for offering up his own daughter to the mob because she was accused of being a witch. And the ultimate sign of devotion would be to turn in your own child. Because, I mean, ultimately that's the conundrum Caleb has put forth. When Oren, and this is first issue stuff, Oren, he manifests magical powers, and then Caleb has to decide whether he's going to give up his son or not to the mob, because this what do you call it? This cult is genocidally anti-magic, anti-magical beings, so, you know, witches, wizards, things like that, that is just unacceptable, intolerable, and, you know, he's all for it until, not all for it, but, he's complicit until his son is on the chopping block. And then he fights back like anyone would, right? This isn't like a weird conundrum. What would you do? Like, of fucking course anyone would do that. This isn't right. But this guy is so ingrained. These people are so ingrained in their cult that they're willing to do that. They're willing to sacrifice their own friends and family for the cult, lest they go to hell, lest they burn in hell. And that's kind of the main question of the whole book. It's not a question even. It's sort of a positing of my belief that it is better to stand behind your child, even if that means burning in hell, than to give them up. And that's that's topical for today, right? You see people throwing out their own children because they come out as gay or trans or whatever, and they'll say things like, you know, you're gonna burn in hell, but I won't burn with you. And it's like, wouldn't you? Like, would you not choose hell to save, for your own child? Like, that's the question, right? Is it better to sell your soul and go to heaven, or maintain your integrity and your morality and burn in hell. And the stupid question, this, how do I say this? The foolishness of the question is, that is the foolishness of the question indeed, because by maintaining your morality, you indeed do get into heaven. If you believe in heaven and hell, and I don't necessarily believe in heaven and hell, but like the concepts of heaven and hell as posited by Christian mythology, to me, it makes no sense, right? Like, there's these, I'm getting political, but that's what this book is about. There's this whole subset of people who feel like through evil, they're going to buy their way into heaven. And it would be laughable if it wasn't so goddamn sad. And to me, that's what this whole book is about. It's the, it's pointing out the hypocrisy of that very mindset. You crazy fuckers think by embracing this blatant darkness that that's going to get you into heaven. Like to you can't find paradise through evil. And so this guy, Caleb, this father who is so brainwashed by this cult that he literally thinks he's condemning himself to hell by saving his own son, has to come to grips with that. That's and it's sort of couched in this sort of chase through the woods. These guys are constantly on their tail trying to catch them, sort of action story. But that's the philosophical question being asked by my book. He's like, not even a question. Like I said, the philosophy I'm putting forth in this book is this idea that it is absolutely better to burn in hell and maintain your soul than to sell your soul and get to heaven, which in and of itself is an ironic kind of contradiction. But yeah, I'm getting too philosophical. And anyway, I'm gonna end it here. This is, I got a meeting coming up that I gotta make with my son's therapist. So, it wasn't exactly fine art you saw, but it was me, you know, showing you what I would do to lay out a page, and this is, you know, uh, changing an already done piece of work and sort of adding to it. And maybe I'll keep going because this scene isn't exactly done, but I think this page is a pretty solid start for, a pretty solid layout for what would become a decent page. Anyway, if you listened to this rambling nonsense, thank you so much. I am about to be balls to the wall, pedal to the metal in productivity, trying to get ready for a con that I agreed to go to without a book printed and no actual merch to put on my table. So I have a few months to start banging out some prints and some fan art and try to get a book printed. Uh, maybe I'll put more videos of that up. Anyway, thanks for following. Thanks for listening. All the best. Oh. This is going to be really stupid considering what I was doing in this video, but this issue sans this scene, like I guess you would say, the first draft of this issue is available on Global Tunes or on Global Comics, Global Tunes. You can read it without the scene in it, and then once I get this done, I'm gonna update that because I think I think it'll be better for it. it certainly will be better going forward having this character more integrated. Um, anyway, thanks for listening. Like, subscribe, all that stupid stuff. I suck at this YouTube stuff. All the best, guys. Thanks.